Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Dwayne Spin Stop, and today we have jazz great, Singapore jazz great, Alemay Fernandez with us. Hello, thanks for coming on. I gotta ask the question first off the bat. Are you and Brendan related? I'm sure you get that a lot. Brendan Fernandez, our previous guest.
Actually, no, we are not. Yes.
So you're related to Vanessa Fernandez.
I'm related to Vanessa, and the reason is because the Fernandez for me and Vanessa is an Indian Fernandez, and the Fernandez for Brendan is a Eurasian Fernandez. So that's why we're not related. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so most of you don't know this, but Alemay and I, although we don't hang out too much, we do share a lot of common ground. It's quite a lot actually.
Yes.
So we were in the SRT, Singapore Repertory Theatre Young Company together.
Yes.
Passion 99.5 FM. This radio
Which
station.
people will not know.
Which people will not know. Yeah. And it was an arts radio station back then by NAC.
It became Lush.
It became Lush. Yeah. We were also in, well, not the same time though, but we both studied at Ngee Ann Poly, Mass Communication. Is
That's
it Shens or Shen?
Shen.
Mass Communication.
Plural, yes.
Okay.
Shen.
Oh, right. And then we also joined Singapore Idol together.
What a mistake that was.
Yeah. Which we will talk about.
Yes.
And we were also Rosemary and Frankie in Beauty World.
Yes, that's my favorite one.
Yeah. And here we are today, just chatting about life, looking back and reflecting on the past. And Alamay's also got her album coming up, which is great. We want to support that. We want to hear about her story, putting the album together, and what songs are in it and what inspired it and everything. So that's coming up at the end of the episode. We always save the best for last. But now we're going to start talking about, I guess, first up, we do like health technology entertainment. So let's get this out of the way, right? I always ask for the health section. Doesn't have to be healthy. Food. Like,
okay.
what is your favorite one place to recommend to everyone that you want to share? So you only choose one. I know people always like
that is really difficult. Okay, give me some parameters. Okay, because I'm known as the food directory, so a lot of people actually call me when they're at different parts of the island and go, okay, I'm here, what should I eat?
All right, I see your struggle, so I'll try and give you some parameters. How about, since we're Singaporean, something local? What is a good one?
That's not a parameter. That's not helping me at all. Okay, how about, what's your favorite kind of food?
Okay, my favorite kind of food is actually, there are different kinds also. Like, okay, maybe how about pasta? If I like good pasta.
Okay, you like good pasta?
If my stomach growls this episode, it's because I'm going to be hungry talking about food.
Okay, pasta. Do you have a specific type of pasta? Do you like bolognese? Do you like vongole? Are you like a calzone person?
I'm a bit weird. I like aglio olio.
Nothing wrong with that.
But I don't like it spicy.
Ah, I see. Okay. Okay. And then what kind of pasta person are you? Fettuccine, linguine?
Angel hair.
Angel hair. Okay. Yes, I'm a big angel hair fan as well. Yes. Okay. Angel hair aglio olio with no chili. Well, that's okay. I mean, I think the chili can be added. Yeah.
Right.
But for really good, authentic tasting pasta, I like Edna's. Yeah, ETNA, Etna. They have two outlets, one in Upper East Coast Road and one in Duxton. And I think they have a really home taste vibe about them. So it feels like you're in a it feels like you're in an Italian lady's kitchen and she's cooking for you. So there's very much that family vibe about the restaurant and about the staff. And I think that makes you feel very much at home and it makes the food taste better. But to be fair, there's a very authentic style of cooking.
Right. So this is very Italian. So it doesn't have all the, like, Americans have a lot of bits and chunks.
It's not at all the Americanized pasta. It's very clean and but it's still very hearty. And it's still very, very tasty. So they're one of my favorites actually. And they also do an amazing lasagna as well.
Wow.
So I'm a big lasagna fan.
So Edna's at East Coast. Is
Edna's, ETNA, yes.
ETNA, okay.
Edna, yeah.
Etna's. East Coast and
Duxton.
Yeah,
they have two outlets.
One for me.
Yeah.
Awesome, cool. Okay, now we're gonna jump back. This is a bit disjointed, but we're gonna jump back to the early beginnings, I guess, of our careers and your career. So, SRT Young Company.
Yes, we were the pioneer batch.
Well, you, Brandon, I came in a bit later. I know you, Vanessa, were already there.
Actually, Brandon came in right after we did. So,
okay.
So he was the second pioneer batch.
Right.
Yeah. I remember, I remember when he walked into the auditions.
Oh, wow.
Very, very vividly, actually. And I remember he did, his audition piece was Shakespearean.
Wow.
He did Richard III, but he but he played him as a cripple, and he had his body contorted and everything. It was just, he was magic already.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Already, everybody was
already.
Like, wow.
Like Wendy, who was you know, the head of the young company, Wendy. Wendy Ng Swee Chin Joan, which is how she used
Hello,
to.
Wendy.
Hi, Wendy. She used to, which is how she used to say her full name.
Right.
Wendy Ng Swee Chin Joan. We're like, no, babe, the Joan goes in the middle, and the Chinese name comes after. Oh, she was confused. So I remember that as well. Yeah. So Wendy was completely floored by how amazing his audition was. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember those were great days. Those were great formative years, actually. I mean, I'm so glad we're still performing.
I know.
I remember you and Vanessa doing the back then. The boy band craze was quite huge, and I remember you guys did I Want It That Way or some kind of backstreet, and you did all these like
that sounds about right.
It was fun.
It was
fun
the
times.
90s, to be fair. It was the 90s, so we were allowed to do boy band skits. Yes.
Would you say this has helped you currently, even as a jazz singer, like you know, to open up and to how has it helped you? Do you recommend it to for like, you know, any aspiring actors or interested?
Of course. I mean, at the end of the day, I started performing first. I mean, I've always loved singing.
Even before jazz? Even
before jazz. Like, I've always been a performer. I've always been a drama queen, which is why my mother took me for auditions very young. So I actually started in musical theatre. I did my first acting role, professional acting role, when I was 10. I did The Sound of Music.
Wow.
And it was for the then Stars, which was the American Association performing. They were the performing arm of the American Association.
Right.
And they put up The Sound of Music, and Roger Jenkins was the director.
Right.
I was 10 years old, and my mother took me for the audition because she's like, my child is a drama queen, I need to give her an outlet, so she gets off my case. And so I went and I managed to get a part, and it was the first major production that I did. It was at Repertory Theatre, which at the time was the only big theatre.
Right.
So it was a big deal, and Stars eventually became SRT.
Oh.
So this was at TAPAC.
No,
it was the
wow.
Teluk Ayer Performing Arts
Right.
Centre. This is 1987.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're really going back.
You're telling everybody how old we are.
Yeah, oops. Shit, yeah.
No,
never mind. It's okay.
We look young. We look great.
I'm fine.
Try to look this great. When
I'm okay with telling people my age. I'm not one of those women who goes, a woman never tells her age.
Right.
I really am not bothered. So yes, so this is 1987 and 88. Sorry, no, wrong. I'm not counting right. It was 88.
Right.
And yeah, so that was my first sort of professional production, and I then went on to do a lot of theatre and a lot of musicals, and you know, it really teaches you about stage presence. It teaches you about production value. It teaches you about working in an ensemble. It teaches you about having, you know, being able to do three things, which is act, sing, and dance at the same time. Having three skills, and honing those three skills. And also it helps you get over your stage fright when you do it really young. So that was all part of my formative years and all part of my performance experience. Right. So it made it a lot easier for me.
Right. You would even say that lent to being on radio, right? That helped your confidence and speech and everything. And
yeah, I mean, it was from there that I wanted to go to mass comm.
Right.
You know,
did passion happen first before mass comm, or was it after? Or was it the same time?
I think, hold on, it was around about the same time.
Right.
Around about the same time. So I was part-timing at Passion as well as Gold 90.5.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I was doing it. Was just like really one-off type things. Yeah.
Right.
At the time, you know, Lynn Sat-Don was my mentor, and she was helping me out. Yeah, it was good fun.
So after S02E08 Young Company, you went on to sign up for mass comm.
Yes.
And how would you say that experience was it, I mean, because this is more the sort of the business of it, also the technicalities of it, rather than, you know, the creative, right, in a sense. And of course also there's so many things to talk about. Of course the technology since then has changed a lot.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Right? I mean, we were learning, I don't know if you were, I was on one of the last few batches learning, this looks so wrong, the reel-to-reel reel-to-reels where you had to splice and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yes, I did that too.
Right. So like, all in all, there's so many questions. So like, first of all, how was that? And then after that, I wanted to ask you, how do you think that has helped you in your career? Because like, we learn things like marketing and things like that. So
yes,
like,
of
even
course.
coming up with your album and wanting to sell it, like if you work, even if you have a marketing department helping you out, it's still good to know these things, right?
Of course.
So what kind of awareness did that bring you? How does it help? How was it different from what you thought the whole media industry was?
Well, I mean, mass comm, was a great foundation for me to understand about marketing, advertising, public relations, radio, television, news, the whole thing. Because we got to do a bit of everything, right? I mean, you remember. And we got to go out and interview people. We got to understand how to put a campaign together, how to market a product, how to understand how to market a product.
Yeah.
And of course that came in really, really handy, because when I decided to sing full time, I became the product.
Yep.
And I had to figure out how to market myself and who my target audience would be, and what kind of clientele would come to my shows, and what kind of music they would appreciate and listen to. So it's definitely helped me. And also because we do a lot of hosting, as you're doing now.
Yeah.
It's really easy for us to talk to people, and without realizing, we get a lot of information from people because we're good at talking to people. So just being able to have interview skills that are not necessarily an interview, you're able to get a lot of information from people, and you're able to put a lot of people at ease as well. So I've always been a people person, which has been very lucky, which is lucky for me, because I warm people up really quickly. I think people have said that I make them feel comfortable,
right?
Because I know how to sort of be really sort of chill about things and not make anything too serious. And so
it shows in your set. When I visited your set the other time, and it's really comfortable. I mean, the whole room's at ease. It's really just and jazz is kind of like that too. It's a very chill sort of kind of vibe, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's storytelling, with music. So people need to feel like they're part of something. Like they're taken on a journey, as with any good story.
Right. Yeah. So if I was an actor and I was going to choose some sort of thing to study in, say, tertiary education, would you recommend I did mass comm or business?
That's a good question. I think...
Just your opinion. There's no right or wrong, obviously.
I think, it depends... Okay, I'll say this. I would say mass comm, definitely.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say don't do business, because and maybe I'd say mass comm first and then business later, which a lot of people actually do.
Right.
They do mass comm as a diploma or a degree, and then they do their MBA. And it's because you need to decide, do I want to focus on the performing aspect of things, or do I want to focus on the business aspect of things? Because some people really have a natural inclination towards business, and they become, and then they go into arts management and those sort of things. And if that's your thing, I say go for it. Because as you're doing it, you're going to realize that there are certain aspects of it, or there are certain areas of it that you want to focus on. Right? So in our case, we like to focus on the performing aspect. And of course, we've had to learn the business. I mean, that's part of it. You can't escape that. But then there are some people who really want to zoom in on the business. And so they do MBAs, or they do arts management, masters, which a couple of my artist friends are doing it as well right now, because they've decided they want to go more into that area.
Right. So it's important.
It's definitely important, because the problem with being an artist is if we're too creative, we forget the business side, and that is always a downfall of an artist. Is when you don't understand the business side of things, it makes it really difficult to do well.
Right. Because
you have to understand how to run the business of being an artist.
Right. And having said that, now going and understanding that and going into something like Singapore Idol.
Oh my gosh.
Did you get tossed around and swirled by the drama and the emotion of it, or how did you see it? Did you see it as a business, as a a format? It was just for like what was that like for you?
I'm really shaking my head in disdain, because it's TV land is a whole different vibe, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be honest. I didn't want to audition for Singapore Idol. I really had no intention of doing it. But everybody was like, why aren't you auditioning? Why aren't you auditioning? Why aren't you auditioning? So I was like, okay, I will audition. Okay, because I really am not a competition type person. It's not my speed.
Right.
Yeah. I just like to do.
Yeah.
I don't like to compete. yeah. So, and also I'm just naturally not a competitive person. I'm quite chill like that. I like peacekeeping missions. But yeah, so I didn't want to compete, and everybody's like, but oh, you should, but you must, you should, it's such a waste. Okay, I'll go and audition. So I went for the audition, and you were there, of course.
Right. A long line.
Yeah, it was, oh my gosh. And I guess when I finally said okay to everyone, I thought to myself, well, it's a good marketing tool.
It is. Well,
right?
TV is.
So being exposed to millions of people at one go can't be bad for you.
Yeah.
Boy, was that a mistake. So, and I know they say all press is good press, even bad press, but you know, it didn't feel like that at the time.
Right.
So,
wow.
So it was all, it was all very, very exhausting as it appears on television.
Yeah.
It's all very exhausting and tiring, and I fell ill because we didn't sleep properly for days.
It was quite. Yeah.
It was pretty hardcore. But you know, we powered through.
Yeah.
You know, and what ended up happening was, you realize that a lot of the decisions that are made by producers. They're not actual reality.
Right. And some of these decisions had already been made, I feel.
Exactly.
They knew who they want to forward. They knew who they want to push. You know, when we performed, it really wasn't as organic as it seems. I mean, am I allowed to say this? I mean, I don't know.
Not, but hey, you know, you're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah, we go in front of the judges and sing it once, and then they record it the second time round. So the judges already know what they're going to say, and what they have seen,
what they're going to hear,
hear already. So they it's all kind of like planned like that.
Yeah,
right?
they do it ahead of time. So you do everything once before, you know, the judges see it, so that producers get to decide, okay, we can label this one the crazy one, we can label this one the bully, we can label this one, you know, the vain pot, and then they sort of guide you in that direction, and then excuse me, and then they oops, and then they guide you in that direction, and then they also edit the footage.
They do
to follow that title and name that they've given you.
Right.
So it becomes very manipulative.
It is. I feel that. Yeah, I feel like you're just like a little pawn.
You are a little pawn.
They set up different, you know, things for you to react to.
They set up little traps for you, and then they of course they want reactions, right?
Right.
And so then they get the reactions that they want, and also they're very clever. They interview you separately, so that you can't corroborate your stories.
Yep.
So it's all very, it's all very.
It's well,
what's
I
the
would
word
say
I'm looking for?
It's all very
that
devised,
I can say without sounding
or I don't know. Well, what's the word?
All very. Not good.
It's not good. So if you wanna, I mean, the good point is you get publicity and possibly good publicity.
Yeah, but in the end, they decided to label me the bully, and so I ended up getting bad publicity.
Yeah,
and because I was sick, because we hadn't slept in days, my eyes were watery and my nose was red. So they made it look like I was crying.
Right.
In the trailers, and everybody was calling me going, what happened? You're crying in the trailers? It's like, no, I wasn't crying. I was just ill. And tired,
Right.
My eyes were a little bit bloodshot. That's all that was. Yeah.
So if anyone wants to get into something like that, I mean, they're still happening, these reality shows.
Of course.
I would say, you know, go in knowing what you're getting into, knowing what you can get out of it, but also knowing how much of yourself you want to play along with this game. I mean, as long as you're playing along, I think it's okay. And there are people who do that, and that's fine.
As long as you're aware of what you're getting into and you're okay with that, then more power to you.
Yeah.
But I think, obviously, for first-timers like us who really had no concept of what was going to happen, it was pretty harsh. I thought it was pretty harsh.
Yeah.
And very unsurreptitiously sort of remove you and make you feel bad when you didn't have to feel bad.
Exactly. We were tossed about quite a lot. I remember the clips of me crying also at the end when I'm hugging people. I'm just like crying because of what we were put through, in the sense where the rooms, they announced the winners.
You're just so tired.
Yeah.
Because you really literally don't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
And you're with, and then they also group you with people that they know personalities will clash with.
Right.
Olinda was actually in my group.
Yep.
Yeah, and we got along great. Olinda is fabulous.
Right.
And also Rosie, who is now an amazing singer, Rosie Kazmani. And then the fourth member of our group was just... Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
gosh, giving
that.
us all hell. It
Yeah.
was really.
I remember that.
She gave us all hell. She made life difficult for us. And then when we were pulled separately to give interviews, she blamed it all on us.
Yep.
And she made us look like the bad guys.
I remember. If I can find a link, I'll put it below.
Oh my goodness.
But the thing was, like, you know, it's funny how, but you know, it really, don't take it too seriously. If ever anyone,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, we're still working. You
Yes,
know, like
exactly.
we work for Dick sometimes as well.
Yes,
it's not
yes,
like,
yes.
you know, it really isn't the be
Dick
all
and
and all.
Dick and us and I and you, we're all great friends, and it has not affected our relationship at all.
Yeah,
So
it's really, and we all understand it. It's for the show. Now we
it's
do,
all
at
about the
least.
show.
Yeah. Awesome. So okay, so moving on from there, now can you tell us a little bit about how your jazz journey started then in the midst of all this?
Yes.
Were
How
you
did the
quite
jazz
into-
thing come
to
in?
jazz during Singapore Idol days already?
Yes, I
Okay.
was. So okay. So I'll try and make this quick.
You don't have to.
So basically, you know, again, we've giving away our age since we've already given away our age. So we grew up in the 80s, and so I was and still am a huge 80s music fan, because in those days we listened to this thing called a radio. I know young people today will not understand what that is, but it's this machine, it's this box, right, that music came out of, because we didn't have smartphones or computers
Streaming or that kind of stuff.
any of that stuff. So we had to turn this little contraption on and hear music come out of it. So I was a big fan of 80s music at the time. So all the pop songs that were on the radio, I was a fan of, right? Everything down to the rock ballads, okay?
Right.
Yeah. And in our house when I was growing up, my father was a huge jazz fan. So he always played jazz music in the house. So there was always jazz music on in the house all the time, because jazz music was his pop music. Just like how 80s music was my pop music. His time when he was growing up, that was his pop music. So he was a big Ella fan, a big Frank fan, Nat King Cole. He loved Dinah Washington, Brooke Benton. You know, he even liked a bit of gospel, you know, Mahalia Jackson. And so we always had that playing in the house. So what you don't realize is this stuff is very subliminal.
Okay.
It just goes into your subconscious and it doesn't leave you.
Wow.
Yeah, so when I got old enough to sing in a pub, when I turned 18 and I got a pub gig, of course I was singing the pop songs of the time.
Right.
But I found myself gravitating towards the jazz.
Right.
And I found that I was enjoying performing the jazz songs more than the pop songs.
Okay, why?
So it made me feel really strange, because I was like, wait, hang on, this is my dad's music.
Right.
This is not my music. But the melodies and the stories were so beautiful that you couldn't not get enthralled by it.
Right.
You know, you couldn't not get lost in it.
The same way I feel about musical theatre, and in fact, the early beginnings of musical theatre, a lot of it were jazz.
Exactly. So a lot of jazz standards came from musicals.
Right.
Yeah. So like the Gershwin brothers, for example.
Right.
Most of their early stuff was all musicals,
Yeah.
and so a lot of the jazz standards that we know today as jazz standards are essentially musical songs.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that's how it started.
So that's
but
the tie-up.
Why did it appeal to you? Because of the story and because
yeah,
of
the stories and the beautiful melodies.
Yeah.
You know,
and lyrics
and
also.
the lyrics. I mean, the storytelling is just so picturesque. They paint pictures with the lyrics.
Right.
There's no way you can't understand what they're trying to say, because the descriptions are so clear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's just very similar to musical theatre again, because it all comes from the same place. But yeah, it's just a lot of beautiful imagery and phrasing.
Right.
You know, not just musical phrasing, but poetic.
Right.
With the lyrics. And yeah, you know, it was a simpler time, and so I think they took their time to write poetry.
Right. And
with
so
their music.
And so you started to explore this, and so let's go through now. There are different types of jazz also. I mean, when I say jazz, there's just all kinds of things. So how did you explore this? Like what did you gravitate towards too, and how did you expand your repertoire and understand, you know, the different parts of it?
Okay.
Like this rhythm and blues and like,
okay.
You know, it's different, right? From skat, for example, or bebop, or
right. Okay. So obviously there are lots of subsets of jazz. Obviously when I'm talking about jazz standards, I'm referring to the traditional jazz, which is the vocal jazz. As in, I mean, the thing is, traditionally, jazz was instrumental music. The vocalists only came in later.
Oh,
so
interesting.
people like Ella and Billie Holiday and all of them, they came later. The music was instrumental first.
Wow.
Yeah.
Primarily what, saxophone or just piano or?
Actually, the person that they attribute a lot of jazz's popularity to is Louis Armstrong.
Okay.
So that would be the cornet. They refer to it as a cornet, which is the trumpet.
Right.
And
so that was the melody line.
Yes,
that was actually
exactly.
the voice
that
kind
was
of replaced
the voice.
that.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, which is why the trumpet and the saxophone, they are considered vocal instruments in the sense that they take the lead lines.
Right.
Or they play like a singer would.
Right.
They play the part of a singer.
Interesting.
So yeah, so Louis Armstrong. I mean, of course there were other great, wonderful musicians at the time, but he became the face, of jazz, and then he started scatting, of course.
Right.
And
so Louis Armstrong sings, right? He didn't play. Did he play as well?
He played first.
Oh, he played first,
yeah,
and then
before
started
he sang.
to sing.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
He played first.
So you're saying
he played first, and he was so good that he became super popular, and everybody wanted to play with him, and everybody wanted him on their show, and
right.
and it sort of started this movement. So so the reason why a lot of that music was like horns, for example, meaning trumpets and saxophones, was because these instruments were left over from the military bands after all the wars.
Oh wow!
Yeah, there was a lot of these instruments left behind, and so they decided to take it upon themselves to try something new with it, and that's pretty much how jazz came about. I mean, obviously, it's a combination of blues and a lot of different things.
Right. So what's the difference between blues, like rhythm and blues is blues, right?
Okay, rhythm and blues,
or swing, or like I'm a little lost.
Yeah,
here.
it can be confusing. Let me see. Okay, so when we say jazz, right? If we talk about traditional jazz, like as in the Louis Armstrong when he first started jazz,
right?
It was a combination of blues, spirituals, which is people singing in the cotton fields,
right? Spirituals as in like the gospel sort of feel?
Yeah, spirituals meaning yes, gospel related, and also which also ties into singing in the cotton fields, right?
Right.
So that was a combination of the blues and spirituals.
Okay.
So
and
it's like I sing about how upset I am because I'm in the cotton fields all day and I'm being suppressed by my master and I'm a slave.
Right.
And then I go to church because I need an outlet for all my sorrows and I need guidance and I need spiritual, you know. So we combine those things and then it becomes a subset of what jazz then became.
Interesting.
Yeah,
right.
what influenced the next sort of generation of music, and of course, there was a combination of other things as well, like bluegrass and which was
and then what's
stuff
swing?
that people played. Okay, swing it started out as big band swing. So we're talking like Duke Ellington orchestras, Count Basie orchestras. Exactly.
Big band, like
exactly.
that kind of like
that is exactly it. So sing, which is the song you're singing, is a classic big band song.
Okay, and that all came after the standard jazz stuff, or is it like all
together?
No,
it's sort of that came first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then and then their songs became so popular that they become standards.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So there's just a lot to get into.
Yeah,
I'm probably asking very stupid questions.
No, not at all.
I think it's best to also research these different terms. Did I say different? Different terms.
Yeah, I would highly recommend Ken Burns' jazz documentary series. It's a 10-part documentary series on how jazz came about and all the different people and the major players.
How do you spell Ken Burns?
Ken Burns, Ken, and Burns, Burns.
Okay.
It's Ken Burns jazz documentary series, which is a 10-part. It's like a 10-part.
Wow.
Hour long. Each episode is an hour long.
And in fact, like this is like a random question. I mean, in fact, all this riffing and stuff that happens in pop now, this all comes from jazz, right? In some ways,
and blues,
and blues, right? That's where it all comes from.
That's exactly where it's from, and that's why the genre became known as rhythm and blues, because it's a combination of the blues licks and the blues, progressions,
right?
And then you add different sorts of rhythms to it.
Okay.
Right. So technically, it's rhythm and blues.
Right.
Yeah.
And when
that sort of evolved as well. Yeah.
Right. And was it always this collaborative in the sense of, okay, so this is another aspect of jazz that I found when I watch it. I see like different musicians come in together and they've not even met sometimes, but they can easily collaborate. they're just, you know, they're just playing something, and then someone's just, you know, just singing something else, and then it can all come together, and you're just like listening to each other. And this is something kind of unique because it doesn't really happen as much in other types of genres.
Yeah, and that is the...
So tell us more about this. Like, how does it all work? It's fascinating. It's like magic. It's like a code or something.
It feels like magic, but it's really not. It's actually... There's actually a formula.
Oh, is there?
But
okay.
It's improvisation over a formula.
Okay.
So without getting too technical.
Right.
So that's one of the things that people love about jazz was the whole concept of improvisation.
Right.
You know, not sticking strictly to each note.
Yep.
Right. Of course, there is a melody and there are chords and there's a progression.
Right.
And you try and follow it to as much as
notes change,
possible.
rhythms also can change. Right.
Yes.
With jazz,
So
you can play.
So the whole point was, the whole point was expression, right? The whole. I mean, pretty much every form of music became an expression and an outlet for something, right?
Okay.
So this was just an extension of that. So it was, you know, so swing was really big during the Great Depression sort of era, just when the Great Depression sort of kicked in, end of the 20s into the 30s. So
As
the 30s was the big band swing era,
Right.
and so it's sort of, and then it just moved on to, again, you know, you're talking about civil unrest, you're talking about racial discrimination, you're talking about a lot of political things that were happening, a lot of political and economic, sociological things that were happening,
Right.
you know, in America at the time. And so the music translates and represents what was happening at the time. So the big band swing era, which is, you know, the Duke Ellington, the Count Basie's and all of them, and the Chick Webbs, young people were trying to escape the Depression.
Right.
And so the music was their escape. It was their place to be happy.
Okay.
And so they'd all sneak out of their houses and go dancing, you know, when they weren't supposed to.
Right.
And actually, the big band swing era and the Savoy Ballroom in particular,
Right.
in New York, it was one of the first places that blacks and whites danced together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the music was what got people together.
Wow.
Because people didn't care what color you were. I'm escaping my depression. I'm escaping the bad news that's out there.
Right.
I'm young and I'm trying to find my voice and I want to do my own thing. I'm a rebel.
Right.
And music and dancing was always associated with that at that time.
So this is part of the mentality of they're just like, we can come together, we can improvise, and we can collaborate,
we can do our
we
thing.
can do our thing.
Yeah,
Right? It's nothing to do with race, color,
exactly,
whatever demographic you are.
Exactly. And because of big bands and that ballroom dancing feel where people were finding their escape, it became so popular that it then was allowed on the radio.
Right.
Because prior to that, black bands and black music was not allowed on radios.
Right. Can imagine, yeah.
So jazz really opened up this huge door.
Wow.
You know, to countering the racism issue.
Interesting.
It brought a lot of people together.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so when you collaborate today, like I don't know, how does it, I mean, I like, how do you know? This is just like, if I were trying myself to join in, how do I know if my next note is going to clash with someone else's note?
Okay.
You just...
Okay.
It's a technical question.
Don't panic.
Okay.
It's actually quite straightforward. So basically, okay, so we look at the jazz standard, specifically let's look at a jazz standard formula. Okay. It tends to be an AABA formula. Now, of course, I'm just giving you the basic one. Of course, there are, you know, others. There are different progressions.
So AABA generally is like a verse, chorus.
Exactly.
Verse. That's an AABA.
So in jazz, actually the A is the chorus and the B is the bridge.
Oh.
Because jazz standards came from musicals, as we said earlier.
Right.
You know how with musicals there's always a little lead in to the song?
Right.
So that's known as the intro.
Right.
And then, or the verse,
right.
Which what we call modern times we call it an intro, but in those days it was known as the verse.
Interesting.
The verse that leads into the crux of the song, which is the chorus. So the verse, and then all the A sections are the choruses,
right,
and the B sections are the bridge,
right.
So that's why with jazz standards we never say chorus, we say bridge. Because essentially
it's chorus, bridge.
It's chorus, bridge,
There's
chorus.
No verse.
The verse is all the way in front.
Right.
Yeah, and not everybody sings the verse.
Right.
So for example, just so I don't confuse you, I'll give you an example. So for a song like It Had to Be You, right? Which everybody knows. Do you know it?
It had to be you.
Yes, right. Okay. So the verse is, Why do I do just as you say? Why do I just give you your way? Why do I sigh? Why do I try to forget?
Right.
And then there's another half of that, and then it goes into it had to be you.
That is the...
And that's the chorus,
right,
which is the first A section. And there's two of those, and then a B section, and then, you know, that kind of thing. So that's how it works. So the B section, when we in a jazz standard, usually refers to the bridge. The verse is actually the bit in front that a lot of people don't sing anymore because they try to standardize it and make it, you know, more succinct.
Yeah.
But most jazz standards have a verse.
Right.
Yeah.
Which people don't know because...
Yes.
Which is like, even... Was it Somewhere Over the Rainbow has a whole...
Exactly.
That people don't even know about,
yeah.
right?
And so for Somewhere Over the Rainbow, it's... hold on. See, now I'm forgetting.
Or even, what if that song, The Way You Comb Your Hair, that one, there's another whole verse in front of it, right?
Exactly.
You know, sometimes you listen to it and you're like, and then it goes into the song, you're like, oh, that's the song?
Yes,
oh, I didn't know.
Exactly.
So you're talking about that verse.
So that's why it's confusing, because with jazz, the A sections are the choruses and the B sections are the bridge.
Right.
But most people think verse, verse, chorus, verse.
Right.
Right? But essentially because they came from musical theatre, the verses are the lead-in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, that's good. Before we get into a little scat session,
yes.
You're gonna teach me, see if I fail or not. You can play Dick Lee now. You can tell me if I can make it or not with this Chinese man got rhythm. I wanted to ask you, like, we were talking about how jazz has evolved because of, you know, political, social sort of, you know, things that are happening in the landscape. Yeah. But like right now, has the music evolved with what we are going through, jazz wise? Do you feel that much has happened since? Because, you know, I mean, all this big band, swing, all that came from the past. Is there something that we have now that is an evolution of jazz?
So many.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
like acid jazz, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's so many subsets and subsets of the genre that I think it's become so. I don't think people even realize that. And
are people snobbish about it? Are they like, this is not jazz anymore?
They are. And that's the thing.
Interesting. This is interesting.
And that's the thing that's really sad, because jazz, the whole point of jazz was about changing the way things were, about saying something about the situation, about improvising, about moving music forward. Right? So it's constantly evolving. That was the whole point.
Right.
And so it shouldn't be boxed in and you know, oh, this is jazz and only this is jazz. I think the whole concept of jazz was about pushing forward.
Right.
And so since the swing era and the bebop, and you know, which then went on to the bebop era and instrumental jazz and all that, it's become, there's so many, like I said, subsets and subsets, and they're basically just combinations and evolutions of all these different types of music.
Right.
So like you said, there's acid jazz, there's instrumental jazz, there's modern jazz, and then there's all sorts of fusions like Latin jazz, and I mean, there are so many.
Wow.
You can't even, you know, if you really want to talk about where they all came from, you can easily hear the jazz foundation in a lot of them. Right.
Yeah, it's still distinct though. I mean, even though it's evolved, it's still, you can still tell it's got its fundamentals in jazz.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it's really interesting if you actually look at some of the current indie, I say indie because it's in inverted commas, indie groups and bands, or hipster for lack of a better term.
Right.
If you go back and you look at who inspired them musically, a lot of them are jazz artists.
Right. Wow.
And a lot of them started out learning jazz and then went on to do other things.
So these current sounds right now, before we go into the scat, I'm a bit scared to scat now, but before we do that, the current sounds now in Singapore, let's talk about it, like old sounds, new sounds. What is the landscape like here? I mean, you perform in, I would say, the circuit. Are there different types of jazz musicians?
Of course,
What places can we go to for what types of jazz? If you could just, in a nutshell, run the viewers through.
Okay. Well, obviously the most famous one is Sing Jazz, or the Singapore Jazz Club, which is at the Sultan Hotel.
Right.
On Jalan Sultan. And so they have, you can go to their website, singjazzclub.com, and they have different types of jazz bands and artists there, from, you know, all the way from Wednesday to Sunday, depending on the schedule. But you can go there and find out. And they also, it's not 100% jazz all the time.
Right.
They sometimes have Latin bands. They sometimes have R&B bands. They sometimes have, or fusion, or, you know,
nice.
on either side.
Okay.
But yeah, you can go there, and they have quite a collection of things happening, and different artists every night. Every Thursday they do a thing called the Vox series, which is Mario Serio on piano with a different singer.
Wow. And you perform there sometimes
yes
too.
Yes, of course.
Right.
And then there's B28, which is Basement 28 at the Club Hotel.
Right.
And they do instrumental jazz mostly.
Wow.
On the weekends with organ trios, and
Right.
it's run by the lovely Nicole DeFell, who's also a jazz saxophonist herself.
Nice.
And then there's blue jazz, of course. Now, blue
Right.
jazz has really evolved. You know,
Okay.
they started out doing a lot of jazz, but they do everything now. I mean,
Right.
literally any kind of music you can get at blue jazz. And they have the similar thing, something different every night. And again, bluejazz.net, you can go there and find out what's happening with them. And they have everything now because they have 3 levels. So there's everything
Wow.
from live music on the bottom floor to DJs on the
I've
second
been
floor
there.
to,
It's like,
comedy clubs. I mean, it's got everything happening all the time. So that's another great one to go to.
Right.
And yeah, and because it's in Bali Lane, it's got a very chill vibe.
Yeah, I love the vibe there.
Yeah. So it depends what you're looking for too.
Right.
So those are, I would say,
Some of
those
the
are
places.
those are the main ones. And then of course
Awesome.
there are other places that have jazz sometimes. So like La Opera, for example, which is
Right.
which is at Boat Quay. And it's above an Italian restaurant run
Nice.
by a lovely Japanese man. And so they have jazz there as well. So,
Okay.
but it's sort of sporadic. So sometimes you
Right.
just have to kind of look for it.
Okay.
But yeah, you can always find something.
things. And where do these people come from? They like, it's almost like they come out of the woodwork. Do these people do it full time? Like, is it sustainable? Like, you do it full time, right?
Yes. Well, yeah.
Which means you're only working at night? Well, I don't know.
Most of the time, yeah. But I
Right.
also teach part-time in the day at LaSalle.
Okay,
So,
right. Awesome.
yeah, so which a lot of musicians do. We teach part-time so that we can gig at night because... and then there are some who have full-time jobs as well, but still gig at night. But I think it depends on what your situation is like. Because I can't imagine doing a full-time job and then gigging at night. I think I'd be too exhausted.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do it, and I have a lot of respect for them. But yeah, it really depends on sort of where you want to put your focus,
Right.
or rather the circumstances of what you're doing.
Right.
I guess I'm lucky in a sense because I don't have children. So I think if I had children, it might be a different story.
Yeah, completely, right?
So a lot of musicians who have families, they have to have the day job and then they do their
support.
gigs. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
So
really a labor of passion, I guess.
oh yeah,
like,
completely.
Yeah. Wow.
Completely.
Okay.
You really have to love it, and I think you know about that too. I think with any
Yeah.
creative industry and artistic outlet, you have to really, really love it because it can be very tumultuous and
Yeah.
hard to pin down, or there's not a lot of stability.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah.
All right, there's not going to be a lot of stability in my scatting now. So that's before we talk about your album and what went into it and
Yeah.
and the creation of it. Yeah. So what like scatting is like? I never know what words to say because you're not supposed to. It's like, do I say a beep, a boop, a doop, or a zoop, or a zeep, or a,
Okay.
like how do I not sound stupid?
Okay,
Like,
okay. So, let me give you like scatting 101, right?
Okay.
Okay. So, remember, like I said, there's a form, right? There's an
Yeah.
AABA form, and that progression doesn't change.
Okay.
It's just going to keep going. AABA, AABA, AABA. It's quite predictable in that way.
Okay.
So give me a song that you are a jazz standard that you're pretty familiar with.
Okay, I'm not gonna scat right now, but I know. Well, it's not a jazz standard, but like "Trashing the Camp" from Tarzan.
Okay.
Just that one line goes da 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 da. So
Okay.
like, is that scatting? If I would have to say make sounds from it. Like,
Yeah. So what you just did was a scat.
Right, but I'm just going da 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 because I don't want to sound stupid.
No, but
right?
that's fine. You see, so the idea is you're just copying what the instrument sounds like.
right.
Right? So
Ah.
in your head, when you heard that line, your natural inclination was to go da 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 da. That's like your natural inclination to
Right.
do that, right?
But people are gonna laugh at me when I do that.
No. That's the thing. So you just take that and you continue with it.
Right.
So for example, the tendency with horns, when you're talking about horns like trumpets or saxophones or trombones,
right?
The tendency is to use the ba vowel,
right?
Yeah, ba or bap, right? So if you're thinking of a saxophone when you're scatting, or you're thinking of a trumpet when you're scatting, then sing the vowel that makes you think of that instrument.
Right.
So that then you can't be wrong.
Right. And where did the Z come from? Zabadoo.
Yeah. So again, remember, it's improvisation.
Right.
So really, it's
anything.
anything goes. It's
Right.
what am I feeling? What instrument am I thinking about? And what is comfortable for me.
Right.
So you shouldn't actually be thinking about the vowels. You should be
Right.
thinking about what melodic thing am I trying to sing.
Right. So just go with it, basically, right?
Exactly. And a good exercise, which I give a lot of my students, is you take a standard song. So for example, do you have like a favorite standard?
I like,
or one that you know well?
Yeah, I like On the Street Where You Live.
Okay, great. So for example, if you're scatting over On the Street Where You
You
Live.
can scat for that, okay.
Oh, yeah. Yes, there are no limits.
Okay.
That's the great thing about improvisation.
Right.
You can put it on anything. In fact, you can scat over a Disney tune if you really wanted.
Right.
You know, that
What,
could...
so what, you're just replacing the lyrics with...
You're just
with
replacing the lyrics with
Interesting.
notes. Exactly.
But
So
if it's so slow, it's like, how do you do it? I mean, like, how would you scat to on the street?
okay, let me show you.
Okay.
So on the street where you live, for example. Okay, let's say I pick up the tempo a little bit. I don't do it at its original tempo.
Right.
Okay,
So it's
just
gotta
for
be
the sake.
faster.
No, it doesn't
No.
have to be.
Oh, okay.
But just for the sake of this example, you can scat slowly. There's nothing wrong with scatting slowly.
Okay.
But it's just a little harder to do.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so I'll make it easier for you, and we'll bring the tempo up.
Okay.
Okay. So let's. Okay. So I have often walked down the street before,
Right.
but the pavement always stayed beneath my feet before. Right. All at once am I several stories high, knowing I'm on the street where you live.
Right.
Okay, so you've got that in your head, right?
Okay.
Okay, now we go back.
Okay.
Okay, and you're going to sing it for me, the
Okay.
same, just like normal.
Right.
And I'll show you what, and each time we're going to sing it a few times, and with each time that we do it, we'll change it slightly.
Right.
And then you'll eventually get to where you need to be, and I'll show you what I mean.
Okay. I don't know the lyrics now.
Oh, okay.
I
I have often walked.
Okay. Okay.
Just sing it.
How high should I have often walked
Down the street
before,
but the pavement
but the pavement
always
stayed beneath my
feet
feet before.
all at once am I
All at once am I
Several
stories high. I'm
Knowing
singing your key, right?
I'm-
Knowing I'm on the street where you live.
Okay, great. Now you're going to sing it again, and this time you're going to try and change the melody just a little bit.
Oh
Not
my
a lot.
gosh, that's
Okay?
okay.
So if you had
try
to
to get lyrics here.
if I said free reign, you can change the melody wherever you want.
Okay.
Okay. How would you sing it? Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So because you know the song, you know the melody well enough that you could change. You know the chord structure well enough that you could change the melody just little bits here and there
Okay.
without taking away from the song.
Right.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll try.
So you try that again. So just now you sang the normal melody.
Right.
Now you're gonna sing it again, still with the words,
Right.
but try and change the melody, little bits here and there, like sort of feel your way through it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And
Okay. Now, in order to do this, you need to think about who you're singing to. You need to think about who you're singing to, because
Interesting.
then you can feel it more.
okay.
So think about who the song reminds you of, or whether it's someone or something, or a situation that it reminds you of.
Ex-murderer? No.
Oh gosh,
No.
More like an admirer,
yeah,
right?
of
Okay.
course.
Let's keep it PG, right? Okay. So think of someone that you really admire or that admired you,
Okay.
and think about that person as you're singing the song.
Okay.
And then literally feel it through. So if you decide to change, okay, for example, I'll give you an example. So instead of I have often walked down this street before, I can sing I have often walked down this street before.
Okay.
And it's still okay.
Right.
Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Right, yeah.
Okay, you try that.
Okay. A bit scared. And
Don't be
this
scared.
has nothing to do with scat. Or later.
No, you'll get there. You'll
Okay.
get there.
I
yeah.
hope we have time. We have 10 more minutes.
Oh,
Let's stop
okay.
there. Okay.
Okay, just try.
I have often walked down this street before.
Okay.
Uh,
Good.
But the pavement always stayed beneath my feet before.
Very good. Okay. So you see how you changed a little bit of that melody?
Bit.
Yeah, and that's
I wasn't
really
thinking of the person. A bit nervous, but
okay. But you get sort of more used to it. You try it a couple of times, and I promise it'll get easier.
Right.
Okay, so now that you've changed the melody slightly,
right,
you can do this a few times,
right,
and keep changing the melody so much so that it's not the melody anymore.
right,
Right?
wow.
And then you take the words out.
Right.
And that's the beginning of your skat.
Oh, okay.
Because it's basically just ideas. It's basically just melodic ideas.
Interesting.
But they have to come from somewhere, which is why I said you need to think about someone.
Right.
And what are you singing about? What's the intention? What's my story?
Right.
Because if you don't have those things, then you can't feel it.
Right.
You can't come up with random bits of music from nowhere. It has to come from you feeling something.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I'll try that on my own.
Yes, he will try it on his own.
But wow.
Let me know how it goes.
Okay, I will. All right, so yeah, it's really, time flies. We only have 10 more minutes, but we're going to be talking about now your album, this wonderful thing that your first album. 7 years in the making?
5
years in the making.
Although it probably feels like more. Yeah, it's 5 years in the making.
Amazing. And so like, how did this come together? Like, so would you say that this is very much like, like Billie Holiday, she's got like all these things that's happened to her, and a lot of it has, she's got so much soul poured into it. But these days it's like, okay, so basically I just want to ask you, where does your inspiration come from?
Okay. Is that where we were ending up? Okay.
That's all, yeah.
Okay. So right. So this album is basically my musical journey. So the last 6 years of my life, actually, the last 5 to 8 years of my life, a lot of things have happened. A lot of big changes in my life.
Right.
A lot of life-changing experiences, both good and bad. And so I've tapped on all these different experiences, and I've written songs that reflect that, but I've also tapped on my musical influences.
Right.
So it literally is like a musical diary of my life, and everything from the things that inspired me as a child, and growing up in the church choir, and as well as different musical influences. So I've got a bit of jazz, a bit of soul.
Right. So these are all originals.
There are 10 tracks, and 9 of them are original, and 1 is a cover.
Oh, wow.
But out of the 9 originals, I've written 6 collaborated with different people.
Wow.
And then the other 3 are other friends of mine who have written things. And one of them is actually I've taken a song that Sarah Wee wrote, Sarah Wee from 53A. Yeah. I've taken one of her songs and put it on the album as well.
Wow.
Yep.
Have you recorded it yet?
Yes, it's all recorded.
Oh, wow.
And it's currently being printed in the CD shop.
Very exciting.
Yes. So.
And where can we find this? Other than at your concert, which
right,
you will,
of course. So the album
well?
launch is happening on the 9th of July at the Esplanade Recital Studio. The name of the album is Hard to Imagine. Hence, the name of the concert is also Hard to Imagine. And of course, I'll be selling CDs at the show.
Right. And you'll be singing all the songs from the album?
Yes, I'll be singing all the songs from the album.
And more?
And maybe a little more. Yeah, I don't know. That's a surprise. You'll have to come and find out. And
tickets are available on Cystic.
Yes,
right?
Cystic.
Okay.
So Alemay Fernandez, Hard to Imagine, the album launch concert is how you can find it.
Right.
And then you can buy CDs after the show.
Right.
Which I will happily autograph for you, of course. And you can click on the link below to get tickets for the show. And you can also click on my website below to get information if you want. And it'll also be available to download online, starting from the 9th of July as well, on all the usual suspects like iTunes and Spotify and all that stuff. Yeah.
Very nice. So these are some collaborators that you've actually worked with and performed, with as well.
Yeah, so there's going to be an 8-piece band on the night.
Wow.
There's going to be a 3-piece horn section, percussion, guitar, and then a rhythm section, of course, piano, bass, drums.
Excellent.
And I also have special guests. So my cousin Vanessa will be guesting, as well as Michaela Therese.
Oh, nice.
And also my partner in crime, Mr. Richard Jackson, will also be a guest on the show.
Very nice.
It's going to be really fun, and I really hope you can make it. So please click on the link below, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
And so just asking about the recording process of it, like jazz is so collaborative, right? Is it all recorded at once?
Okay, so I did a couple of ways. There were certain songs where we recorded everyone at once,
right,
together in the room, so that's more organic.
Right.
But there were certain songs that we recorded the musicians separately and put together.
It's hard also to because when you have so many elements going on.
Yeah. So for the simpler songs, for example, the duet, I recorded the Sarah Wee song, which is called Heaven Wrote a Song. I did a duet with Richard, and Chok Karong was on piano.
Right.
And the three of us did that at the same time. But for the bigger ensembles, like for example the big band tune, which has a lot of horn parts and a lot of different things going on, I had to kind of do that separately. I did the rhythm section together, and then we added the horns later.
Interesting. So do you also do your own like backup sort of harmony and vocals and stuff like that?
Well, for this album, I didn't do backup vocals.
Right.
I decided to not do that because I wanted a more sort of live sound element. But I did do a song with Vanessa McKellar and my sister, and that was specifically an a cappella tune.
Beautiful.
So yeah, that one of course was 4-part harmony. Yeah.
And when we listen to your album, do you recommend that we listen in order? I mean, because an album is such a thing. People just listen to singles now and they choose their favorites.
The way people listen to music today is very, very different.
So is this order part of your journey and how you want the audience to?
I think,
or rather, how you want the audience to listen to?
Yeah. Well, I think I've done it in such a way that you can do both.
Okay.
So because it's a journey, and there are different influences from slightly different genres. It's all basically jazz based, but subsets of it, like I said. But then a soul take, a bluesy take, a gospel take, on but still with my jazz sensibility. I think I did it in that way so that there's something for everyone, so you can zoom in on the track that you like.
Right.
Especially since we download tunes these days, right? Individually, but you can also listen to it as a whole, and then you can hear the journey.
Right.
From the soul to the jazz trio, big band jazz. There's Latin jazz. There's and then there's just me and a double bass.
Wow.
For example, for one of the songs,
it's more vulnerable, I would assume, right?
Yeah, because I've always loved the double bass. It's one of my favorite instruments, and I've always wanted to write a vocal double bass song. So I said, well, this is my opportunity to do it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I can't wait to listen to it. And I'm so happy for you.
Thank you so much.
It must be your baby, right?
It is totally I literally feel like this has been a 5-year pregnancy.
Oh, wow.
It feels like that.
It's coming out, guys. Get ready for it.
Yeah. No, but it's so exciting. I think I'm a combination of petrified and excited all at the same time. And I think that's very normal when you are about to present original material.
Of course.
Yeah. So I'm extremely excited. I can't wait for everyone to come and hear it. So please come for the show. I promise you will not regret it.
Excellent. I will be there as well. And like how I'd like to do with every guest, it is your turn to say goodbye and click off the stop recording.
Oh, okay. So how do I do that?
So when you're ready, you just move
I see.
And just go click record.
Okay.
When you're ready, say goodbye and...
Okay, hold on. Let me position first. There you are. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'd like to say thank you to you, Dwayne, for having me on your lovely show. This has been so much fun. And
yay!
I hope we get to do it again.
Yep. There's always the next season. So, and I'll make your episodes into little bits as well so that they're more... for those that like to have them in shorter breaks, check that out.
More manageable pieces.
Yeah, spinisodes.
Spinisodes, I love it.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alemay.
Thank you so much, Dwayne. All right, everyone, we're going to say bye.